The Morristown Green, a Central Park echoing with the footfalls of Washington and his compatriots during the Revolutionary War, is not merely a serene escape, but a living testament to the town's pivotal role in shaping our nation. Morristown's history seamlessly intertwines with every individual who grew up there, creating a childhood rich in the echoes of the past and a vibrant spirit of community carried forward by each successive generation. These are their stories. This is Beyond the Green.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Green, where we talk about the people and places of Morristown. My name is Peter, Morristown High School, class of 1990. And this bullheaded guy is...
And I'm Terry, or Satiri, and I'm Morristown High School class of 1987.
Welcome back, everybody, and we have a great show for you today. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce to Beyond the Green a fellow classmate of mine from 1990. He is a two-time nominated Grammy-nominated musician. It is our distinct honor and pleasure to welcome John Ginty to the show. Welcome, John.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much for having me. Peter, I don't think I've seen you since graduation day, 1990.
You got that right. A lot of things have changed. I've lost a lot of hair since then.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
So, John, let's talk about growing up in Morristown. So, whereabouts in Morristown did you grow up?
Well, I was right down there off South Street, a little street called Prospect Place, and my father was a fire in the fire department, Morristown Fire Department. So we had one of those streets, like back in the old days, and they'd stack all the firemen on the same street so they could all run to the firehouse. So yeah, Chief Gribben lived on the street, and we had John Prendergast. There was 3 or 4 firefighters along with my dad there. So that's where I grew up. Yeah.
Nice. So where did you go to school before high school?
So before high school, I did Thomas Jefferson and then on to Frelinghuysen for those weird 2 years that you would do there. Yeah. And then, Morristown High, all 4 years there. Yep.
Awesome. So talking about your time at Morristown at the high school, you started off earlier on. What started your musical? Like, when did you start really getting into music? Because you started off playing the drums.
Yeah, and that actually was the real beginning for me. It was really all about our wonderful teachers, John Schumacher and Jill Van Sickle. They were the ones who really encouraged me that I could do this full time and do it for a living. And yeah, I started out as a drummer, and I played in everything that Morristown had to offer, which back then was a lot, right? We had jazz bands, we had orchestra, we had jazz chorus, we had all these different programs. And so I got to get in there and play drums for a lot of those. And, I don't think it ever really stopped. I never really stopped from however much I worked in high school on music. It just went right into a career. And I switched to keyboards shortly thereafter, but we've kind of felt that happening my senior year. Every time I should have been practicing drums, I was in that little room playing piano, playing Journey songs or something,
So in high school, musically, who inspired you?
In high school, I was a deadhead, as my classmates would probably remember. I had really long hair, and I did the full-on Grateful Dead thing, and we were going to Grateful Dead concerts pretty regularly. And wow, to look back on it now, we were the oddballs. We were the freak shows. And look where it is now with the Dead at the Sphere doing 30 nights in Vegas and all. And you're all going now. All of my friends are going now. Back then, it was just a couple of us. But, I saw Garcia a lot. I got to see Jerry Garcia a lot. And that band really inspired me to go on and do cool stuff. And I got to tell you, it went full circle, right? So every Deadhead knows their first show. So mine was a 4/6/87. And that was the first time that I saw the Grateful Dead at Meadowlands Arena, which is where we used to go see all our shows. Brendan Byrne Arena. guys,
Yep.
right? Come on,
Yep.
you're with
Yep.
me.
Yep.
And it was, so it would be 4/6 2007. I would play at the Beacon Theater with Bob Weir and Rat Dog, and play their whole
Right.
second set with them. Get to play 6 or 7 Grateful Dead songs with them on Brent Midland's organ, the organ that was on stage all those years earlier.
Yeah.
So it really became
Yeah.
full circle, and it was all sort of, I don't know, it all felt kind of lined up. It all sort of seemed meant to be.
Yeah. But did it seem surreal? Did it seem surreal at the same time?
Totally surreal, like completely.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that this is
Yeah.
happening. There's no way that I'm playing this on Brent's organ. Brent was really, he
Right.
was a huge inspiration to me to play Hammond organ, that's my main instrument. I play keyboards, I play
Yeah.
piano, but people hire me to play Hammond organ. That's really
Yeah.
what my specialty is. So
Yeah.
yeah, to have that, all those years later, and play my hero's organ at that venue in
Yeah.
New York City, yeah, the whole thing was like,
Yeah.
this can't,
Yeah. So I read somewhere that was your grandmother a professional organist as well?
That's true. My grandmother Honora was a church organist for St. Margaret's there in Morristown.
Mm-hmm.
She played a lot of
Yeah.
people's weddings. She
Mm-hmm.
played a lot of funerals, and she was a teacher. She taught organ to a lot of students. Now, so the freaky thing is, this is very odd, is she passed away years before I was born. So
Oh, really?
the
Okay.
fact that I would play Hammond organ professionally is another, just like, it's really hard to believe. It's, my family always found that really hard to believe. And so, yeah, we were never around at the same time. One of my cousins, Kevin, who lives down south, he came to a show once. I was on tour, and he told me that he took lessons from her when he was a kid. And I said, "Oh, you got to tell me,
Wow.
how did she play? What was her style? What did she sound like?" And he said, "She was aggressive." And I was like, "Yes, I'm aggressive too." So I like to think
Yes.
it's really passed down in the blood there somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome though when you think about it. I'm sure when your parents saw this, you're like, what's going on here? Like, she's like your kindred spirit musically.
Yeah, absolutely. No one knows how it happened, because I never made a conscious
Yeah.
decision to do that.
Yeah.
I switched from drums to keyboards because it just had more answers to me. It had more of what I
Mm-hmm.
needed. But then I would go
Right.
and join like a Southern rock cover band, and those guys were like, "Man, you got to get a Hammond organ." And next thing you know, I had a Hammond organ, and all
Yeah.
these years later, it's like it's my thing. So
Yeah. So then, I read a couple of articles and just to get a little more information about your career. And your career was pretty much on a upward trajectory right from the get-go. Like, it's like you had a lot of opportunities come your way. I'm not saying you didn't have to work hard for them, but a lot of doors opened up for you very early on, after high school.
absolutely, yeah, they really did, and it was the hard work kind of came after the doors opened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if
Yeah.
it was a cart before a horse scenario there. I certainly was working hard, but you got to have some luck in this business. You
Yeah.
gotta be in the right
Yeah.
place at the right time, and you got to meet the right people. And yeah, I've had a couple lucky turns early on, and met a couple people who brought me into the music business and taught me a lesson that I teach a lot of kids and a lot of people who are getting into the business now. What's left of it
Mm-hmm.
is, you, you got to take advantage of those things when they come along, and you have to be in it to win it.
Yeah.
If you're not hanging out backstage at the show and meeting the people, then it's going to be tough for you to kind of get in it. Rock and roll is
Yeah.
a tiny, tiny, tiny little place. So when I was first playing in cover bands in New York City, and my classmates will certainly remember the Wetlands, is
Mm-hmm.
right on the other side of the Holland Tunnel, which is where we all used to go hang out in the early '90s and see bands. If I have schedules here in the studio from the '90s, that if you look at them now, they say Dave Matthews Band, they say Pearl Jam, They say Oasis, Hootie and the Blowfish, and that was all just in 1 week. And but they were back then. They were all new bands, just making their way through the club scene. I think it was the first time Oasis ever played in New York. They played the Wetlands. So that was where my band played on Tuesday nights. You could get in for free. You know, we thought we were big shots. But that's where it was happening, man. That's where the scene was. And so all the people that I met through that club and through that scene would carry on to this day. You know, I met Warren Haynes at the Wetlands and sat in with him in probably 1992 or 1993.
Right.
And, you know, I played with him a couple weeks ago. So it's you know, that was the real connection. We were really lucky to have the access to New York City that we had at the time that we had it.
Absolutely. You know, you were a session player for a lot of different bands. How difficult is that to be asked to be a session player? Is it something you have to audition for, or is it just somebody comes to you and say, "Hey, I heard you play. Do you want to come play in one of our sessions?" Can you drill down a little bit on that?
Yeah. So producers hate to make new friends. Okay. And that goes along with what I just said, that rock and roll is this big. So, this, you know, I've probably played on a couple hundred records up to this point, but the producers, you could count on two hands. You know, one producer in LA, Jim Scott, I've done over 30 records with him. So once they know what it is that you're going to do, and they know who you are, and they know you're going to show up on time, and they know you're going to have a sound, well, then you become the guy. And so, and then as far as covering the spectrum, that's probably my favorite thing out of what I do, is that I can go on tour with the Chicks, and within 48 hours, I was recording a Wu-Tang Clan record. So, I mean, I literally have gone like the entire spectrum, and I love that. And that goes to the nature of the instrument that I play. Is luckily for me, Hammond organ is good on all of that stuff, and it gets used on everything from country and rock to pop to hip hop and blues. So I get to do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, I read an article once that said between 1965 and probably in a 30-year span between 65 to 95 was perhaps the best 30 years for rock music.
Agreed.
Would you agree with
100%. That? And I was lucky to see it. When I first got into the business, one of the first records I played on that really meant something was a record called Whiskeytown. It was Ryan Adams' first venture, and the album is called Stranger's Almanac. And it's it's the high bar for alternate country music and what would become that genre. A lot of people look at that record as sort of the top business. So that record, I went to Nashville for a couple weeks, and we took our time, and we recorded on 2-inch tape in a real recording studio with a big shot producer and the whole nine. It had everything. And I thought, this is 1997. I thought, wow, this is going to be great. I get to do this for the next 30, 40 years. Like, oh man, I got it made, No, I mean, that was one of the last, it was practically over by 2000. It all turned into computers and laptops and Pro Tools, and we can't afford you, and we can't afford to fly you out. And can you do the record in one day? And there's no budget, there's no record label, so it by 2000, it was all gone. But for a couple years there, and in a couple of important records, I got to see it. And I'm so grateful I got to see it. It was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, talking about studios now, I just want to touch base a little bit about Ben Elliott. And I know you were very close to Ben. I don't know if my brother knows this or not, but Ben was co-owner of the Showplace?
Yeah, in Dover.
Yeah, in Dover on Salem Street.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So he recorded like Keith Richards there, and they did or Ben, I don't know if he was there, but he recorded Clapton as well. I
Sure.
don't know if it was at that
Yeah, no, it
studio.
was.
I remember
It was.
and I remember I read an article years ago that Bon Jovi recorded there as well. I don't know if that's true or not. It may have been. I'm not sure about
I don't
that.
know if they I
But
don't know if Bon Jovi recorded there, but they probably played there. Back in the
okay, maybe they play
80s,
there.
the show place,
Yeah,
the front half of the show place was actually a music venue, and
yeah,
certainly Metallica played one of their first shows there. So I
yeah,
know that for a fact. So I wouldn't doubt that Bon Jovi had played in that room as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So going back to Ben, he was very influential in your career.
Huge. He's one of my dearest friends, and
Yep.
I love that this is a Marstown based interview because I always have to leave this part out, but I can actually tell you guys, you're actually
Mhm.
going to be interested by this. So
Okay.
my mom was a dental assistant, and she worked for
Okay.
Dr. Murray Gruber on Maple Avenue in Marstown, right behind the
Yeah.
library, one of those big Victorian
Yeah.
buildings. Okay,
Yeah.
so when it turns out that Ben Elliott is Murray Gruber's son, so
Oh.
Ben and I go back as far as human beings go. He remembers actually my parents coming over to his house for dinner when they were dating. So, and Ben was a teenager,
Wow.
right? So the fact that we'd go on to make so many records together, once again, it's like another one of these. We keep bringing up these crazy meant to be moments. Certainly, that's another one. I don't know how that's
Yeah.
possible, but it was, and in the last 15 years of Ben's life, we made some really great records. The Bennett
Yeah.
brothers and
Yeah.
Alexis P. Suter, Albert Castilla, Todd Wolfe, Sean Chambers, Slam Allen.
Mm-hmm.
The list goes on and on. Rochelle Cobo. We did a ton of great work together up at that studio. And yeah, every once in a while, a big shot would come in. Keith Richards and Lou Paulo and Clapton recorded
Mm-hmm.
there with Hubert Sumlin for a Muddy Waters
Mm-hmm.
tribute record. And
Sure.
word would get out that the big shot was in town, and it would make the Daily Record or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we always got a kick out of it.
Yeah.
I did a lot of work in there with Neal Casal, the late great Neal Casal, also a New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
Denville guy. So,
Yeah.
Ben, unfortunately, Ben passed away in 2020, and the studio's gone. And we were just talking the other day about what a fragile little moment in time it was. But boy, we made some great records.
Yeah.
We made a lot of great music out of that place. Yep.
But is it true that you're in possession of the analog console?
Oh, I dropped. I didn't mean to drop you.
That's all right. Dude, that's awesome.
Wow.
Dude, if that console could talk.
I have
Right.
a couple things. I have a couple of really important microphones, and
Yeah.
well, it was unfortunate to bring the studio down and have to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And he had an enormous collection of gear. This is only 16 channels of what was an enormous room and just a wall of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody had ever been in there, you knew what I was talking about. So,
Yeah.
it was years to deal with that stuff. And his trusty assistant engineer and mixer, Josh Gannett, another Marstown resident, Marstown High School graduate, one of my dear friends.
Mm-hmm.
He really did a great job as far as making sure that the gear got to the right people for the right, the way that it should be intended, what Ben would have wanted. We really tried to do our best with that. Josh did a great job. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. It's a
Do you,
great
do you
way
have
to.
any of the you have any of
Go
the
ahead.
original recordings off that board, John?
oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And there's, we managed to, we were also careful about, getting stuff to the original artists. So when the whole thing kind of crumbled, everybody was sort of able to salvage what they could salvage out of it. It wasn't like anybody really lost anything that was recorded in there. Ben did a great job cataloging too, so that part of it was okay. Yep. But there was some crazy tapes in there. I'm not going to lie to you. There was some Benny King tapes. There was some Nirvana tapes. There was a couple of heavy things in there that
Really?
had to be dealt with.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think the other, when we talk about that, when my brother mentioned the kind of that golden era of recording, I think the other dynamic that's happened, and I saw recently when I was looking at some of your background for this episode, the Almond Betts band that you're a part
Yeah.
of. The thing that's striking to me is how many musicians from that time that we remember
Oh yeah.
have offsprings, children that have followed in their step. And Almond Betts is a perfect example, right?
Yep.
You have Devin Allman, Greg Allman's
Yep.
son. You have Dickie Betts's son,
Drumming. Yep.
and I think I just read that Alexander Orbison just joined as a
That's
drummer,
right.
who I think was the youngest son of Roy and Barbara Orbison.
You are correct. Orby is our new percussionist. Our Scott Bryan passed away last year, and so Orby's always been a friend and has sat in with the band on numerous times. So he took the slot there, and it is wild. You are correct, sir. It goes even deeper than you think. It's the tree is wild when you really start to look at it. And what's even more fascinating, I think, is how they gravitate to each other. So a lot of children of famous people and children of really great artists, for some reason, gravitate toward each other. And in our case, Devin and Duane, they knew each other when they were teenagers because they were obviously out on tour with the Allman Brothers and out visiting their fathers. But it's kind of strange that they're such good friends with Roy Orbison's son, and somebody was in a band with Robbie Krieger's son, who was also in a band with someone else's. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. So yeah, it's wild. The coolest part about the Allman Betts band is, even back in the '90s when I was doing the Wetlands and I was coming up and just being a Morristown knucklehead, I played a lot of Allman Brothers music, and that was sort of the bread and butter of what we were doing at the Wetlands, and I've played that material my entire life, and I've played it at a very high level. But it is different when you play it with Devin Allman and Duane Betts. It's just different. They just play it different. And it's a little more true, and it's a little more correct, and it smells a little bit better. It's odd. I can't really even put it into words what it is, but I tell you, it's different. It's definitely it's in the blood. If you've seen Jason Bonham's band, if you've seen him running around out there, go. If you haven't, go see it. But if you have, you know what I'm talking about. I watched him hit 2 notes on the drums, and I went, well, there you go.
The greatest, one of the greatest performances I think I've seen in others was the tribute that Hart did with him playing drums at the Kennedy the Kennedy Award ceremony.
That was
I think gave everybody goosebumps. Not only because of how incredible Hart is, but to see him on drums and go, that's but the broader question I have that I'm curious about is, do you think it's what we're seeing is something generational that may not be duplicated? It's not like you don't have more modern musicians from a different generation that won't have offsprings that are not just following in the footsteps, but in and of themselves, they are incredible musicians. Oh, by the way, Wolfgang Eddie Van Halen's son is another example. But do you think it's generational? Because I always say, and I'm always biased, right? We always talk about Gen X. It's amazing how many songs. Another example, just because I saw that you played with Matthew Sweet.
Yes.
I think "Girlfriend," not the song, has one of the best drumming solos on it. That album came out in 1991, and I've played it for people that aren't from that generation that are like, this is a great song. Who is this? I go, it's Matthew Sweet. I don't think we've heard of him. It just blows your mind. But the lifespan of that music that we grew up with, do you, as somebody who is in the weeds, Do you think it's generational? Do you think that's too simple or outdated concept, that it's just that what we see today is different? It's not necessarily better or worse or won't have the lifespan 20, 25 years from now. It's just different. You have a perspective on
So
that?
there's two parts. I think it evolves like it always does. And we're not supposed to necessarily at this point in our lives understand, agree with, or like what our kids listen to, right? That's always been the rule. Our parents hated what we would listen to, so on and so forth. That part of it is okay. And I'm okay with, I've always been okay with, people think because I'm a rocker and I play blues and I play hip hop or whatever that I don't like Taylor Swift or Justin Bieber or Katy Perry. I love all those artists. I think there's a place for everybody. And I think if it's something that connects with people on that high of a level, I have no problem with it. The problem comes into when we're in this evolution, the normal evolution of music, but we lost the industry. The industry has literally gotten swept away, and it is finally catching up with the product. And so I don't know where that goes. I wish I could see down the line as to where that goes. I'm not positive. I certainly hope that it would be more than generational. But if it is generational, that means a couple are going to have to go by before they turn around and come back. And so, people say, even look at me like I'm nuts when I say I make records. I mean, well, what do you mean by that? And it's just the terminology that we used in the 90s, and so it's because that's what we used to make. But I stick with it because, and they're very important to me still. When I take it very seriously in here in these rooms in the studios, because I don't know that what we're making isn't gonna mean something 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 generations from now. It may mean more than everything. So that's why we still do it, and that's why we still take a lot of care into it. But as far as that goes, I don't know. Until they put some industry back in it, it's really tough to say. Morristown High School does a career day. You guys know Career Day? I got a call a couple years ago, and they said, would you come in for Career Day? We want you to go into the music and arts room and talk to the kids. And I said, I'll do it. But just so you know, I'm going to stand at the door and I'm going to point all those kids to other rooms because there's no industry in this room behind me. There's nothing. It's all, I wouldn't know where to tell you where to even begin nowadays.
Yeah.
So, until that comes back in it, man, it's really tough to say,
Yeah.
Which is funny you said that, because my brother and I were just talking the other day, because in 2022 there was a documentary about Z100. Remember Z100?
Of course.
The radio station, and how that kind of started, went from worst to first. But the bigger thing about it is they became, one of the reasons they became so popular is because Shannon was a music guy. He loved playing music, and so they became the station that musicians like Madonna would go to and say, "Can you please play this?" And that was the actual story he used, right, in the episode. And they played it on some of the evening shows, and they became so popular they made it to the morning show. And they're the ones in Times Square when she came out with the her first movie, where it exploded. Even radio station promotion like that, and putting it in loop and playing it, adding it to the rotation, is so different today from the perspective when you talk about industry, right?
So it's become so saturated, and the quality level has gone down because anybody can get in now. So even the quality level of your recordings, the way that your records sound, it's all sort of slowly gone down. And so, we're left with this now. And I don't know. It's hard to, I don't want to sound hopeless about it because I still do it for a living. But we're basically, they've taken us down now to where all I can do is play you my song and then come to your town and set up a gear and play it for you live and hope that you buy the ticket and maybe you buy the t-shirt. And that's about all I got. left because
Yeah.
the record sales aren't going to be there. Even if, when somebody comes into the studio and they say, I want to make a record, I say, well, why? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to make 500 CDs? What are you going to do with those? There's no CD player in the car. There's no CD player in the computer. I walked into a room full of 50 people once. I said, raise your hand if you could play a CD right now. I think, I don't know, one or two hands went up, right? So, and then the records, actual vinyl, yes, there's a market for those, but it's very, very small. And if you look at the best sellers, the top sellers, sorry guys, sorry Bon Jovi. They released a new record. It was number 2, I think, on the Billboard on the week it came out because all the pre-sales loaded up. We can all kind of do that trick nowadays. And the next week it fell off the charts completely, not on the Billboard chart at all, completely. So that means, they're now Bon Jovi's selling as many records as I am now, which is not good. that's not supposed to be the way this works.
Yeah. John, when your career started out, when you're, as you exited high school and you started gearing up your career, I'm sure you had certain expectations on where you wanted your career to go. For you personally, have you met your own expectations? And would you consider yourself successful in the music industry?
That's a great question. No, yes, no, yes, and no, and yes.
Okay.
So me, senior year me, walking around the halls with you, with my long hair. I probably thought I was going to be on the cover of Rolling Stone someday.
Yeah.
Me getting into my 20s and having a hard look at the music business and having done big stuff. Like some of my first stuff was like Saturday Night Live with Jewel, 1997, MTV Unplugged. So I was doing big stuff. That guy gets a better perspective on like, ooh, it's hard out there. It's hard to be on the cover. It's hard to be Jewel. It's hard to be an artist. It's hard to have your name on the marquee. But all these other guys up here, all these California big shots and New York big shots, they work all the time with everybody. And so 30s me is like, I made it in the music business. I'm successful. I'm a professional musician. I tour and I make records for a living. And I do it for as many people as possible. And I'm not the guy ever going to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. And I'm cool with that because those people have it tough. And I don't want any part of that, And 40s me thought, well, maybe I do. Maybe I'll make some solo records and try it out and dip my toe in. Maybe now I'm ready for it. Maybe now I can be a big shot. Maybe now, no. That didn't work either. Again, it's like be careful what you wish for. I got to make some of my own solo records, and it's the hardest I've ever worked and the most money I've ever lost in my life. I'm lucky we all survived it. I'm not sure we did. And I went running back to the studio. So, when Devin Allman calls and says, hey, I'm putting together a band with Duane Betts, and we want you to, I go like, well, yeah. I'm there, man. What? Say the word. Greg Allman was my guy. Like, are you kidding? That's another, are you kidding me? I get to do that and play Blue Sky and play Midnight Rider and make records and original records. Oh, man. It's been a gas. Loved it. Perfect, So, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. But it's a fantastic question, man. And there it is. Like, want to be an artist? That's it. I had to throw it all in, man. I lost everything a couple times. I've missed everything. I've missed every wedding, every funeral, every birthday, every baptism. I have missed it. I've missed it by a lot. And I had to go all in to get this to where I am now. And I love it, man. I wouldn't change a thing. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we're proud of you, John.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel that from you guys, and I appreciate that. I do.
So I want to kind of loop back around because I know my brother's got only a few minutes because he has to bounce off, but I just want to loop back to Morristown. And before we started this, we were talking. I joked to you about, oh, was Ginty Field named after you? And you know, and was Ginty? We'll put it out there. Was Ginty Field and Ginty Pool named
Yeah, because
after
I
you?
told you, I
Your
thought this was
family?
going to be like question 1A. Because in Morristown, it
Yeah,
usually is question 1A from all the way back.
yeah.
So, yes, my uncle Jack, John W. Ginty,
Hmm.
was the mayor of Morris Township in 1969. And he
Hmm.
had a vision that was great. And he had a bunch of great ideas. And his great ideas were a pool and a tennis court and a ball field and another ball field and a couple more pool and another and this and the vocational school on Route 53 going into Denville. That's another one.
Hmm.
All my Marshtown friends are like, "Yo, what's up with the pool?" And all my Denville friends later in life are like, "Yo, what's up with the school?" So
Yeah.
it's been. I am John Fitzgerald. I'm John F. Ginty. He is John W. Ginty. So we're not the exact same name, but yes, my whole life every teacher wanted to know. And check this out, guys. Here's an adult conversation we can have. He was a politician, right? He was a
Hmm.
politician through and through. And so, like most politicians, people love them. Some people not so much. So,
Yeah.
a lot of those times I was like, why doesn't this teacher like me? What's the vibe going on here? I couldn't necessarily figure it out, but
Hmm.
as an adult, I know what time
Hmm.
it was.
Yeah.
I know what was
Yeah.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so when you come back and you visit town, do you like just walk onto into the Ginty pool and they're like, "Sir, do you have a pass?" And I'm be like, "You see my name? That's me." And like,
I've never tried that trick. Even as kids, we had to
Exactly
pay.
right.
We had to join the thing like everybody else.
I think we should try that,
I know.
John.
I
I
think
think
so.
we should try it and be like, "That's me right there."
All right,
This
Peter.
is
You and
my
I, we'll go
pool.
down
Like,
there next time. I'm
yeah, next time you come up, let
we'll
me
come
know
down.
because we'll videotape that. I think it'd be amazing to get the
Yeah.
response,
I
you
don't
know?
know, man. It might be like never heard of you. Inky, what?
That's funny.
So listen, John, real quick, let me just ask you a couple more questions as we're pushing up against the time here. So other than the teachers you've already mentioned in high school, in band and all that, anybody else inspire you?
Well, yeah. There's been tons of inspiration along the way. I mean, you mean back when we were in school?
Yeah, in school.
Oh man, you know, I mean, Marstown was it was a big school and it had a lot of different elements to it. When you kind of look back
Mm-hmm.
on it now, and I'm sure parents will know this. I don't have kids. We didn't have kids. I was touring so much all through the years, but
Mm-hmm.
um, we really had a lot of access back then.
Yeah.
So, and it's things like this that sort of matter when you talk about school budgets and art budgets and music. But oh, we lost the music program. Oh, we lost this. We lost. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know where Marstown is at these days, but I know a lot of schools, and I play benefits all over the place, all
Mm-hmm.
over America for school programs that need instruments.
Sure.
And the Neal Casal Memorial Foundation donates instruments because we need instruments desperately. Well, back then, I clearly remember like if we got charts handed back in Spectrum was the jazz band.
Mm-hmm.
If they handed out the charts, once in a while there'd be a chart on it that said vibraphone. And I'd say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, Mr. Schumacher, don't we have a vibraphone? And he'd say, sure, here's the key to the locker. Go out around by the gym. There's a big locker in there. Push the vibraphone
Mm-hmm.
out, push it down the hallway, push it in here, and we'll have the part. I mean, that's like a really heavy, huge, expensive, massive, expensive piece of gear that we just had
Yeah.
in the closet ready to go. And so it's
Yeah.
about that kind of access. Marstown had that. Thank goodness. I mean,
Yeah.
so many of the skills that I took out of those rooms applied
Mm-hmm.
later in life. Just those two little
Yeah.
rooms back there, that music room and the chorus room. The radio
Yeah.
station was across the way. I'd pop in there every once in a while. WJSV is still going. I know that I get emails
Yep.
from them.
Yep.
But that whole area was just kind of bubbling in art. And it was hard to not be inspired by it. And so
Yeah.
when you look at it, man, it's like, I know, I'm sure you guys know this, but Ben Caesar has been out there on tour for years with a country superstar, and I mean, so many guys in my drum line. Rob Pilata, was in that band Tragedy Forever, and there was some point in like 2013 or 14 where the three of us were all on tour in Europe at the same time, right? I mean, it's just like so. It was hard to not be inspired by that. I think that's why that particular area turned out so many artists, musicians, and people who would still go on and do stuff like it. Still sit in front of a microphone. You're sitting in front of a microphone,
Exactly. Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think 2024 John Ginty would tell 18-year-old John Ginty the night before high school graduation?
Stop smoking cigarettes. Which I finally did, people. After 30 years, I finally got hypnotized, and I am now over a year smoke free. It took this long. That's the one regret. I go back and I'd whoop that guy's ass.
Whoop the Marlboro man.
Yeah, that was a really bad idea, guys. Turns out that was not good. So I'd whoop his ass over that. But no, other than that, I would tell him to be patient, and hard work is going to get a result. And the result is, you can try to predict it if you want to. You're not gonna, but it's a result. Hard work gets a result. I promise you that, every time. So that guy did all right. That guy, he worked his butt off for a couple decades. I said yes to everything that came my way, and and it mattered, to where now, I'm, what are we, 52, and I am I'm starting to kind of say no a little bit,
I hear you.
I don't know if I want to do that 6-month run, of shows.
Got it. John, finally, do you miss any restaurants from Morristown?
Well, I told you I moved to Florida, right?
Yeah, I know, and I know the pizza sucks in Florida.
It's terrible. We keep trying to convince ourselves otherwise. We got this place that's like decent. It's like decent, and we keep getting it. And we go like, oh man, what are we talking? This is great. And and I go home and I get a slice and I go, oh my god, we have nothing. So I miss the pizza and the bagels and the diners. I miss having it made with the diners, Jersey people. We had no idea how good we had that all these years. To get a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese at 3 a.m. with French fries and gravy, trust me, you can't do that.
It doesn't get any better than that.
There's a lot of other states out there, and they don't do that.
Right.
That was us. That was just us. So,
well, I have to tell you, John, COVID kind of screwed all that up, because a lot of diners now, they're not open past midnight now.
Yeah, I get it.
Maybe 11 o'clock.
I get it. The numbers changed and everything kind of changed, but it's still possible. It's still possible.
Yeah, it's still possible. It's
impossible in like Kansas. Believe me, it's not happening.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't even know what a diner is.
Sioux City, Iowa. It's not happening.
They don't know what diners are. Sometimes they'll take a train car and make it look cute. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. That's
exactly. Well, listen, John, we really appreciate you coming on and spending the time with us.
Thank you.
On behalf of the two of us, I want to wish you continued success in everything you do. And on behalf of our graduating class of 90, John, keep doing what you're doing, man. We're all proud of you. And hopefully next year we'll see you at the 35-year reunion.
I hope so. I would love to be able to make it to a reunion. Hopefully I'm not on tour somewhere, as has been the case.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I mean, I'm all over the place. I'm easy to find out there. But hopefully every couple of years or so, I get the invite to come up and play First Night Mars at the big theater. And we set it up and we have a big hoopla in there. And if you see that, you ever see that coming, Morristown people, 1990 people, MHS people, if you ever see one of those coming, come on down. I mean, it's the easiest thing you'll ever do. That theater is beautiful. It's cheap and easy to get in. It holds all of us. We really have a blast. I always have special guests, and it's one of my favorite things to do. They really roll out the red carpet for me up there and make me feel like a big shot. So come on down.
As they should. As they should. You're a treasure to Morristown, my friend.
Thank you guys.
And finally, John, I'm going to have one request.
Sure.
Oh,
if you have some free time on your hand, and there's no urgency, if you maybe maybe when you were with the band, with the Almond Betts band, maybe you can write us a quick 30-second jingle to use as our exit theme song when we have the credits rolling at the end. Again, it's not a necessity, but I'm just saying it would be kind of nice.
Peter,
I'll buy
if you need a jingle, I am your guy.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm actually going to serve that up for you. Okay. This isn't some just blank. Oh yeah, we'll put a pin in that, and I'll see you down. No, I'm actually going to do that for you. I'm going to record it right here in the studio.
I appreciate.
I'll record it on the Dover console.
And I need something like with a little nastiness to it.
Okay,
you know
well,
what
now
I mean?
you're getting
little
picky.
funk.
I don't know. Who's producing this?
Listen, you know what? John, whatever you decide to do, we would appreciate it. And the best I can offer you is like 5 pizza pies and a couple of Tailor-Aid,
fries.
sandwiches.
Yeah, disco fries are on us, my friend.
Go to Stuvio's and flash freeze one and ship it on down to me. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm
Sounds
serious.
good,
It'd be my pleasure to record something for you, and it'd be a piece of cake, and it would take me no time at all, and I would love to do it. So
we would appreciate it, John. Thank you so much. And once again, on behalf of Beyond the Green, I'm Peter. That's Terry. And thanks, John Ginty, for coming on. Continued success in everything that you do.
Thank you, guys. And thanks for what you do. This rocks. It's an awesome show. Keep it up.
Thank you.